Prosecutor Stacy Diener. I'd like to call Pat Brown. Have you always lived in Delphi? Brown. Yes. Diener. Were you familiar with the High Bridge Trail in 2017? Brown. Yes. I lived 1.5 to 2 miles away from the bridge. I've known Mike Patty his whole life. We have children the same age as Kelsey, his granddaughter. Diener. Did you know the Williams? Brown. No. Diener. In 2017, did you work the day shift in maintenance, Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., and at some point became aware of Libby being missing? Brown. At 3 p.m. I was done work and drove home. I went to a SUV parts store, changed the oil. I drove my daughter to Monticello, had supper, then started watching TV. My wife saw a post that Becky had made on Facebook. Did you do anything? Brown. Yes, I called Mike Patty. He was at the police department. I believe it was dark out. I called Tom Mears, a buddy of mine, and asked him if he would go to look, and he said yes. Diener. The Mears family. There are lots of them in the area? Brown. Yes. We went over to the cemetery. We rolled into the cemetery and walked around. Diener. Diener requests Brown to come down to the large map on the easel placed in front of the jury. Can I ask if they can see it? Judge Gall. I think yesterday there was a glare and the jury couldn't see it. I would ask for a thumbs up, she says to the jury, and the jury gives thumbs up. Brown. I stopped to ask Ron Logan if he had seen them. He was retired. He didn't see them, though. It turned into the cemetery and parked my vehicle. A ravine runs through and I came around. I walked along the ridge. Brown points to the ridge on the map. I worked my way around. Someone had a vehicle backed up. They had a drone up to search. I talked to them a bit. I walked up to the Mears entrance. I met Tom and we went out to the Hoosier Heartland Highway and around to the gravel road. We drove all around the county to see if they were out walking, west of the ravine to the High Bridge Trail. Diener, would it be difficult to walk? Brown, yes, I would say it was real deep, but in the dark, you would probably break a leg. It was really steep right here, and he points to the map. You couldn't walk. Diener, did you cross the High Bridge? Brown, I did not. Diener, did you have a flashlight? Brown, yes, there were flashlights over here and here. Brown points to the map. Diener, the people with the drone, they were not law enforcement, random people? Brown, yes. Tom brought me back to my truck. I stopped at the fire department to talk to them. I took old number 25 down, drove the back roads. I thought the girls may have tried to walk home or walk into town. Diener, then you went home? Brown, yes. I took off work the next day. I asked my wife if she had seen anything on Facebook. I drove into town, got a coffee, talked to John Randall. I drove home. My daughter was getting ready for school. I went to the Stone House, met Tom and his father-in-law. My daughter got a ride to school. We drank coffee at the Stone House and went across to the fire department. Steve Mullins seemed to be heading it up. He gave us a phone number to call. Prior to that, I would not have known him. I didn't know he was the Delphi chief of police. They were using helicopters to fly over the trail area. Years ago, there used to be a cave down there, so we went to see if maybe they had gotten into that cave, and then went back to Tom's house. I went home. I got a call from my daughter, so I went to school to pick her up. It was about 10:30 to 11 a.m. I'm not sure. We sat there and ate lunch. I thought at that time they had a command center set up. They put a trailer there. I heard that. Tom called me. Shane Haven got a call. They seen something along the creek. Asked to go back to the cemetery. Parked where I did before. We tried to call Shane. Tom gave me the number, but he didn't answer. There was a gate on the east side. Came through the gate. Shane had called him because it was private property. They are across the creek and they could see something. We ran into Melissa Marchand. We spoke a bit. That Shane had called and had seen something. They also said there was a fireman. Diener, could you see the water? Brown, a little bit. We came across the girls. At first, I said, we found them. Please note, Mr. Brown had been matter-of-factly describing the events of February 13th and 14th up until this point in his testimony. His voice was broken when he described finding the girls, and it was emotional testimony to hear in the courtroom when his voice cracked. Brown. Melissa took off and ran the other way. I got on my phone and called Mr. Mullen and told him. Ben Mears came from the west with another fellow. The fire department came from the west. 3 girls came from over here. Those girls didn't get close to the girls' bodies. We stood there and waited at that time until the police came. Diener, for the record, I would indicate this. She presents the zoomed-in large exhibit number 3, which is a closer view of the cemetery, zoomed in. Did you go closer to the fireman that was in the water, dressed in fireman's clothes? Brown, I didn't know where he came from. Diener, you saw Ben Mears? He came from the west? Brown, yes. Diener, Shane Haven, could you see him? Brown, just Ben and the other guy and a fireman. Diener, did you know that Melissa Marchand was a relative of the family? Brown, yes. Diener, where did you wait? Brown, I was 5 feet away from the girls. The police asked us to leave the same way we walked in. I didn't have a firearm with me. Cross-examination. Baldwin, you could hear people from the high bridge. The sound is pretty good. Brown, yes. Baldwin, you could see lights? Brown, yes. Baldwin, from the cemetery to the high bridge? Brown, maybe not all the way to the high bridge. I didn't see the clothing. Baldwin, Ben Mears, I want to clear up where he was walking. Brown, I don't know where they were walking. They were walking from west to east. Baldwin, how far is the cemetery to the creek? Brown, 30 to 40 yards. Baldwin, could you see the creek? Brown, yes. Baldwin, this is pretty steep right here. He points to the map. Brown, yes. Baldwin, there were going to be dogs? Brown, yes. Baldwin, the 3 girls, they were up there? Baldwin points to the map near the cemetery. You can get down there. Brown, you can get there from the top of the ravine, but it's very difficult. Baldwin, when you called in, where were you? Brown, facing away from the girls. Baldwin, is there phone service there? Brown, yes. Baldwin, 2 law enforcement officers showed up shortly after, in uniforms with guns? Brown, yes, a bunch of law enforcement. Baldwin, lots of law enforcement, correct? Brown, yes. Baldwin, you're a deer hunter, correct? Brown, yes. Baldwin, there are lots of coyotes, turkey vultures, scavenger animals? Brown, yes. Diener, objection. Jury question number 1. Who was your phone provider? Brown, Verizon, I think. My wife pays our bills. Jury question number 2. Approximately how long did it take for the police to arrive after you called? Brown, it seemed like it took forever. 5 minutes, tops. Jury question number 3. How fast was the crime scene secured? Brown, inaudible. This is the end of Pat Brown's testimony on day 2 of trial.